Hello and welcome to FPL Waffle, a game week 28 preview, a blank game week. We're going to see how many points I got in game week 27, a few transfer tips for this week and moving forward. I'm going to try and do it as concisely as possible. So here we go. Into firstly, how did I get on in game week 27? And I'll tell you how I got on. I got 90 points, 86 in total if we're taking into account my -4. I initially was going to go for a really straightforward route of bringing in Jason Steele this week for no minus points, and I was going to play Odegaard instead of McAllister, and I had Varane instead of Dunk, who I'd held for weeks for this Southampton fixture, and in the end I bottled it because I thought he was going to get benched, which he didn't, and I thought Odegaard might not play because I was on an illness flag, and he did play and smashed it. So I ended up with my hit coming out as +1 from what I would have got. I'd have got 85 with the Jason Steele route. Or no, I think I'd have got more because Steele got bonus points. But anyway, I made +1 on sort of the transfers I made with the hit. But it does leave me with 10 players for this blank game week coming up. So I'm kind of gone from a really sort of boring Jason Steele route, with my transfer plans lined up without really needing any hits and just making boring moves. But I'd probably more point secure moves to kind of going a bit mental. And I've got a potential mental plan this week as well, which I'm going to need your help for. So I'll give you a hint about that in a minute. Quick review though of the players that did well for me. McAllister, Matoma for Brighton. As a Brighton fan, obviously delighted. Dunk as well, getting the cleaner and a bonus point last night against Palace on my birthday. Couldn't ask for more. A win against Palace on my birthday. Harry Kane did the business. Trippier, I watched get a lovely assist. Henry got the cleaner. Henderson got the cleaner. Haaland, I kept for the points. I mean, Gabriel on the bench for 14 was brutal. It didn't bother me too much because I was never going to start him this game week. But the one week he scores a header is when he's on my bench. That was brutal. And then Bomo, mate, he's missed so many sitters recently. And obviously Tony gets all the points and then Bomo doesn't. And Henry missed a couple of sitters. They're going to have to go. This is their last week to redeem themselves and then they're straight in the bin. But anyway, all in all, 90 points, 86 with the hit. All right, gave me a small green arrow. Like I said, it was 1 point green arrow as well. So we take it, we move on. And into this coming game week, let's have a chat a little bit about some of the players that I think we should be looking at. So here's the fixtures. Newcastle Forest, I'm sure most of you will have Trippier, and I think he is essential really for this fixture and probably the next few fixtures coming up. So you need your Trippier, and you might well want to double up with Newcastle. A lot of fancy football sweats saying triple up, if you're feeling really sort of eager to go for it. So a Botman Shah Trippier combination or Pope, Shah Trippier combination could be the play. If they get a cleaner against Forest, you're laughing going into their double next week, and they've got some nice fixtures coming up. So anyway, definitely Trippier you need, maybe 2, maybe 3 if you really want to be brave. Then you've got Villa Bournemouth. I think defensively or attackingly, you might want a Villa player this week. We'll look at some specifics in a sec. Brentford against Leicester, you're going to expect goals, aren't you? Ivan Toney obviously springs to mind. Spurs v Southampton, most of you might have Kane. We're going to talk about a potential pick of mine in a minute with that one. Wolves Leeds, I don't think too many are fussed about that. Wolves are good defensively, but I don't think they have a double next week. And we know Leeds can score goals, so I think we're going to ignore that. And then Chelsea Everton, you're either looking at Felix or Havertz up top, or you're looking at Chilwell or James at the back. Chilwell's been doing well of late, so he's probably the pick at the moment. But with Cucurella lurking, I always feel a bit uneasy about going for Chilwell, although he's had a good streak of minutes lately. And then Palace at the moment can't score a goal. Playing against Arsenal, away to Arsenal, you're going to have your Arsenal assets. You're going to want at least, I think, a couple of Arsenal players for that game, which I assume most of you have already as well. Saka is seeming pretty essential this season. So there's a kind of quick, brief few thoughts chucked out of the fixtures. In terms of the scout selection, this is the team they put together for your sort of dream 11. Now, on this quick, Zinchenko and Martinelli have both just racked up 120 minutes tonight in the Europa League. So there is a chance they get reduced minutes in this game against Palace. I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I think we know Martinelli's always a minute's risk, although he has been smashing it lately. But I feel safe with a Saka. I'd feel safe with an Odegaard. I'd feel safe with a Gabriel if you're going to go triple up on Arsenal. Like I said, Chilwell is probably a good pick this week, to be honest. And he could well be a good pick for their double in 29, providing he stays injury-free over the international break. He's been called up to England. So I'm sort of prepared to maybe wait on the Chelsea defenders, but home to Everton's such a good fixture. I think it's probably worth taking a punt if you've got a transfer in defence that needs making and you fancy it. I think it's worth a punt with the likes of a Chilwell or a James, because I'm sure he'd be back from illness. But have a look at the press conferences tomorrow as they come out. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out on them before I make my moves. There's your Villa defender that I mentioned, Martinez. You could go for Cash. You could go for Moreno at left back. Has been putting in some performances, but with Digne there, he's never guaranteed to play. Um, and then I think, yeah, Madison, I think, is a real good one to look at this week because he's got a great double in 29 and he has a game this week against Brentford. So I think if you don't have Madison, either this week or next week, you want to be seriously considering him, I think. Tony, I think, is a great pick. You've probably already sort of made your whatever the saying is, sort of major beds, whatever the saying is I'm looking for. If you got him or didn't get him in the game week 27 doubles, I didn't have him because I had him Bomo that I'd carried through for ages. So I'm just probably going to try and get through this week without Tony because I don't really fancy him for the double next week. And he's one booking away from a couple of suspensions. And he's got a lingering ban. So at this stage, I think if you have him, you definitely enjoy having him against Leicester. If you don't, you take your chances and hope he blanks or doesn't do too much. Watkins against Bournemouth, I think, is a big shout because they've got a nice double in 29. So I think home to Bournemouth, he's even a captaincy pick potentially. I think Watkins. So there, I think some considerations. I think Watkins is looking a very strong play. If you don't want to go him, then Havertz or Felix could be the play, or Tony, like we said. But I think bringing him in this week isn't the play. If you're going to bring someone in, I think it's a Chelsea attacker or Watkins. And for captaincy, yeah, I'm thinking it's got to be the really Saka's probably your most sort of likely kind of safest captaincy on pens. He came off the bench tonight in the Europa League, so he should be fresh enough. All those things considered. So you could go Saka, you could go Kane. They're probably your two safest picks. It looks like the scout have gone for Kane. If you want a bit of a differential, you've got your Ollie Watkins that's there, who I'm tempted by personally, which kind of brings us on actually to my transfer plans because there's a couple of other captaincies I'm thinking. I think Tony's another captaincy option. Scout have got it on Martinelli as vice, but I just minutes risk, I'm not convinced. So anyway, Saka, Kane, probably your most reliable picks. Tony, I think, is a good shout. And then your differentials, yeah, Tony would be a differential. Watkins would be a nice differential. And here is an extra differential I'm going to chuck in the mix. So here's my transfer plans. I currently have 9 players without transfers. So my free transfer was always going to be Haaland, which sounds dangerous after scoring 5 goals in the Champions League. But he's got a blank this week. Bring in Watkins. He also has only a single against Liverpool next week, Haaland. And I might just do a hokey cokey and bring him back in for an Mbomo or something next week anyway. But we'll see what happens after the international break. So anyway, Haaland to Watkins. And then McAllister, I just brought in because I don't have any value tied up in him, whereas I do Matoma Rashford. I just want to go for it. With the money I get from Haaland for a 1 week punt, Heung-min Son, living the memories of when he banged 4 goals at Southampton at St Mary's a couple of seasons ago. At St Mary's, he just scored in the last game week. I just want to go for a mad differential. If he smashes it, this could be my way out the leaderboards and a bit of fun as well. Thrown in. Fantasy football should be fun. This feels like a fun transfer to do. So Watkins and Son are my 2 punts this week, 2 captaincy differentials. And my plan was always to captain Watkins, but with this Son idea, I'm like, Son could well be the captain choice. I'm going to let you guys help me decide who to captain this week as a fun differential, Watkins or Son. So I've put a Twitter poll up. I've made a little Twitter account on, and it's called FPL Waffle. And I've done a poll. It's got a whopping 1 vote so far for Heung-min Son, Ollie Watkins, Heung-min Son. I'll put the link in the description for the poll so you can just click on it. Give me a vote. Help me to decide who to captain. I think my differential head is saying Watkins because he's at home to Bournemouth and he's on form. My differential heart is saying Son, and he probably has a higher ceiling. If someone's going to destroy it, it's going to be Son this week, but maybe Watkins is safer. I don't know. Help me out. Give me a vote. Currently, Son's winning. So yeah, if you want to change that or help me to keep going for Son, then yeah, help me with the poll. So that's kind of probably my overarching thoughts this week. Game week 29 on your FPL.team is definitely one you need to be thinking about this week. So have a flick through and see what your team's going to look like when it comes to that. But yeah, as long as you've kind of got, I think, at least sort of nine players, I think, this week for the blank. I think that should get you by okay for the double next week, providing you've got some reasonable players lined up for the double in game week 29. So have a think about those things. And then just a really fun random thing to chuck out there. I was meant to share this last week. This team, this was based on points that would have been for game week, I think, 20, at the end of game week 26. If you made this team at the start of fantasy football and just left it for the whole season with the captaincy on Haaland and the vice on Almiron, didn't do any subs, and here's your subs on the bench, you'd be ranked 118th in the world. How painful is that? The hours you put into thinking about fantasy football transfers. If you made a team like that, sat on it, smashed it. The lesson that I learned from this is sometimes we can overthink transfers and moving sort of some of these key assets around for doublers and for players with good fixtures. When actually some of your key players for the season, like your Sakas, your Rashfords, your Haalands, your Tonys, your Kanes, your Odegaards, your Trippiers, if you just sit on them, they're probably inevitably going to get you a high amount of points over the course of the season. So yeah, a bit of a lesson maybe in terms of not overthinking transfers, trying to be too clever. Stick to key players that are doing well. At the same time, at the start of the season, not everyone would have predicted that all of these players were going to smash it. So, hindsight and all that. But I found it interesting that, yeah, you could potentially be that rank in the world by just leaving a team from game week 1 with no transfers. I thought it was an interesting thing to think about as perhaps I'll bring this video to a close. Hopefully that was a nice, short and concise one to the point with some key transfer plans I think you should consider. But yeah, like I said, I think Maddison, Watkins, maybe a Chelsea defender, well worth considering this week to bring in. And outside of that, yeah, some of the other players I mentioned you might worth a look at. But yeah, there's a few options to consider. Here's a reminder of the Scouts team pick, which I think is a pretty strong shout, to be fair, some of the players they've got in there. So yeah, have a think about some of those. Vote on my poll, help me to decide on the captain this week, and we'll come back for game week 29 to see how I got on and how your poll may have helped me or hindered me in my overall point score. So for now, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Have a good game week. Hope you get lots of points. Enjoy fantasy football. Don't get too stressed about it like I often do. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.